He called them protesters. A presidential election. Protesters. This is, of course, I believe the same J.D. Vance who said, oh, no, we would never. We, the president, I'm sure, would never, ever pardon people that beat up cops. Well, not only did he do that, but he pardoned them, and now he's created a slush fund. Yes, you've got to assume a $1.8 billion slush fund for people that beat the hell out of cops. Why do we say that? Because Donald Trump was asked, Mr. President, is this going to be even for people who beat the hell out of cops? And the president said, oh, we're going to have a fine commission to determine whether these people, and including those who beat the hell out of cops, are going to get this money. I mean, Mika, this is just, again, it's just so extraordinarily outrageous. You have the president talking again about this $1 billion Marie Antoinette ballroom that it was perfectly fine. We had security, we had facilities to keep the president secure, and then he tore down the East Wing. Said, oh, it's not going to cost anything. Now it's going to cost over $1 billion. They can say it's for security, but it's happening because the president wanted to create a Marie Antoinette ballroom. And now, on top of that, while people are struggling to pay their groceries, the people are struggling to put gas in their cars, people are struggling to pay their rent, we got this $1 billion Marie Antoinette ballroom now that they're talking about funding, and a $1 billion plus sludge fund for people who beat the hell out of cops. It is a slush fund, a weaponization slush fund for supporters of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and the Republican Party. And again, you've just got to say, with all-time low, hey, Republicans, listen, you have all-time low approval ratings. You are getting wiped out by Democrats in every poll that's coming out. And you're blindly going along with a Marie Antoinette ballroom that these taxpayers who can't afford groceries are going to have to fund with their own tax dollars. A war that keeps going on and on and on and on that they're going to have to fund, even though they can't afford to put gas in their car. And you've got a $1 billion plus slush fund that I guarantee you will go, if the past is prologue, to people who beat the hell out of cops. For people who beat the hell out of cops. Take your support the blue flags down, because you're just full of it. You're full of it because, unlike me, who supports cops, whether they're at the Capitol or whether they're on Main Street in any U.S. town, you just kind of support cops when Donald Trump tells you to support cops.
Right.
But not the Capitol Hill cops. You were such cowards, you refused to even put up a plaque honoring the dead. Honoring the dead. Honoring those cops that were so brutalized and torn to shreds that they went home and had PTSD and killed themselves. Because you sat there and cowered, and now you won't support them, and now you're gonna pay the people who killed the cops.
That's twisted.
Good morning, America.
Yeah.
I hope you're doing well, because I will tell you, Republicans in Congress aren't doing well if they sit back and allow this slush fund to move forward like they're allowing the Marie Antoinette ballroom to move forward, like they're allowing continued funding without any oversight of this war. How many billions? How many billions are we at right now that taxpayers are paying for this war that nobody really wanted? That the overwhelming majority of Americans are against, just billions and billions and billions of dollars. And the president, Mika, as I said yesterday, he could go out and explain this. Instead of just ranting in front of a microphone, he could sit down and have a speech and talk about the dangers of a nuclear Iran and the sacrifices it will take. He just won't do it.
No, he's talking about his ballroom. He's got his plans
He'll talk about the Marie Antoinette ballroom. He'll talk about the Golden Arch. He'll talk about a slush fund for cop killers. He'll talk about all of those things. And by the way, if you don't think they're cop killers, little boy with your podcast, if you don't think they're cop killers, talk to their wives, talk to their sons, talk to their daughters, talk to Brian Sicknick's mom, talk to their families, and they will tell you the very people Donald Trump wants to give billions to are cop killers. Ask them who killed those cops on January the 6th. They'll tell you, Mika, it's beyond disgusting that these Republicans sit back and do nothing, do absolutely nothing when they know what he is doing is wrong.
We're also going to run through new details that we're learning about the extraordinary use of executive power that could effectively help shield President Trump from additional scrutiny of his finances and legal conduct. That's another big story we're following this morning, one of many on this Wednesday, May 20th. With us, we have the co-host of our 9 a.m. hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, MSNOW national affairs analyst John Heilman. He's partner and chief political columnist at Puck, U.S. national editor and columnist for the Financial Times, Ed Luce, writer-at-large for the New York Times, Elizabeth Buemiller, and senior writer at The Dispatch and a columnist at Bloomberg Opinion, David Drucker joins us this morning. And Joe, there's a lot to get to, it is staggering how small the voices are. I mean, Republicans are beginning to push back here and there. We're hearing Senator John Thune say that he has his own opinions that may differ from the president, but it is hard. Yeah. It is really hard to fathom the concept of the J6 rioters who defecated on our nation's capital, being called protesters and being tried to be told that they somehow are being treated unfairly. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and and these people who go and lie just repeatedly, like, well, that's not an insurrection. They were trying to overthrow.
That's our vice president who's saying that. Yeah.
That's an insurrection. If we could put up our August panel again, and I just want to explain a little bit. I came on a little hot. I want to apologize for that, but I knew that if I gave Elizabeth Buemiller the microphone without expressing that rage, that Elizabeth would have gone off. And I just want to protect her because, the New York Times, they don't like their people screaming like that, Elizabeth. So I wanted to do that. She would have torched the place. For you. She would have burned this place to the ground, I tell you. Elizabeth, do you know the exact number? If not, we'll ask our intrepid reporter, Jonathan Lemire, for the exact number. How much money has the United States spent thus far on the Iran war?
$25 billion or $29 billion, depending on who you ask. But it's an enormous amount of money, and there's no end in sight. It was interesting yesterday or Monday, Trump, once again, we're sort of in this endless stalemate where the president says, we're about to attack. And then sometimes in the same day, he will say, well, we're holding off because of negotiations. There's no clear evidence that negotiations are going on, but it is just this back and forth that he does not want to attack again, given what's going on with the economy, given his low approval ratings, given how unpopular this war is. But he's kind of stuck in a corner. It's a real problem. I just like to point out a story in the New York Times this morning by my colleagues, including Mark Mazzetti, about how the U.S. had planned to install Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was a name from way back when, from the Bush administration, as the leader of Iran. That went south, but it just shows you how unplanned and by the seat of their pants this war is.
Yeah, Heilman, Bud McFarlane could never find the moderates in Iran, but thank God the Trump administration did. It ended up all the time the moderate was Ahmadinejad. Who would have known they were going to blow him out of prison? Almost killed him, of course. This is straight out of a South Park episode or a movie. What was the movie where they had the American heroes that saved Paris by blowing up the Eiffel Tower and everything else? A great movie a couple years ago. But anyway, that's what we were doing. But again, you look and see the numbers are just extraordinary. You look at the poll numbers, and Republicans are so upside down. They have to know they were in big trouble. And then Donald Trump comes out and he endorses basically the Herschel Walker of Texas. Except that's an insult to Herschel Walker, great former Georgia Bulldogs running back. Ken Paxton. They have just put Texas in play if Paxton in fact wins. But let's take it a step further, because, people always say to me, Joe, you're playing not 7-dimensional layered chess. You're like 9 or 10 or 11. Let's take it beyond that. Not only do they put Texas in play and give Tallarico a shot to make it competitive by putting up that runaway beer truck right there that you're looking at. I put that runaway beer truck up and wanting him to win the Senate. If he beats Cornyn, and he most likely will beat Cornyn with Trump's endorsement in Texas, you now have millions and millions of dollars that would have been spent elsewhere being spent to try to save a seat that Cornyn could have probably won 2, 3, 4 points. But not only that, look what Bill Cassidy did yesterday. He voted with Murkowski and others on the War Powers resolution. So now you're going to have him. You're likely going to have John Cornyn. You're likely going to have other Tom Tillis. You're likely going to have other senators. Thank you, Senator Bill Cassidy. Such courage, such courage. I wish you would have shown it for RFK Jr. But anyway, you know what? I'm a Southern Baptist. We take converts when we can get them, even if it's the 15th verse of Just As I Am. You're welcome into the family. Thank you. God bless you. And now go and sin no more. But here we are. Think about it. You're going to have 3, 4, 5 senators that are on their way out, John, that are going to pretty much stop a great deal of what Donald Trump does because they're unchained.
Yeah, Joe, one can't predict the future, but if you look at what Tom Tillis has done, that should be a reasonable indication of what Bill Cassidy and John Cornyn may now do, both of whom, frankly, have been, constrained severely over the course of the last year and a half by their fear of precisely this thing that has now happening to them. They've neither one of them is MAGA in their heart. Both of them have, in the past, the distant past, but the past, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, been willing to go against the president on matters of importance, but they have basically put themselves under wraps, put their principles under wraps, put any instinct they had towards independence or moderation under wraps in order to try to get Donald Trump to be on their side in the primaries. Instead of being on their side in the primaries, he turned against them, has now turned against John Cornyn. And I think, Joe, in the end, that race, of all the things that Trump has exhibited this kind of power over the past few weeks, from Indiana to Louisiana, now to Thomas Massey's seat, where he's flexing his muscle and proving to people that he still continues to have this vice-like grip over the Republican Party. And he does. But the biggest story of the day yesterday is the possibility that Donald Trump has just, if not given away, has certainly made the Texas Senate seat competitive in a way that it would have been competitive probably even if Cornyn had won the race. But if Ken Paxton wins the primary, Texas is not just in play, but there's an argument that James Tallarico is the favorite there. That could be ball game for the United States Senate, given what we're seeing in terms of the national polling and the number of Senate seats now that were supposed to be safe that are now in play, where Democrats feel pretty strong. This could be that's the big news of yesterday on the political front, is that Paxton endorsement.
There's the biggest news. All this stuff, and speaking, we're continuing the Unchained Melody, which, by the way, I expect we need to bump out on that one instead of course, probably not the theme song to Team America, because we can't do that. But those are all the reasons why Bill Paxton's weak candidate. But, here's the thing. I think John Lemire, with all due respect to fine reporters covering these stories, I think they're getting the story right in front of them. Oh, Donald Trump's still very powerful with the Republican base. Look how powerful. We must fear him. Really? He's like the guy that picks out the players who are on the Washington Generals to play against the Globetrotters. Like, okay, yay. Okay, great. Herschel Walker. You, Donald Trump picked you to go play on the Washington. Oz, Dr. Oz, you get to run for Senate in Pennsylvania. Remember, everybody made such a big deal about that. Masterano, Donald Trump supporting you. You get to run. I mean, they all lose. They all lose. And he's done it again. So the story is not, oh, Donald Trump, he keeps picking who wins the. No, he keeps picking losers. I mean, the Democrats, you know, Masterano, Oz, you just keep going through all of it. And here he's done it again in Texas. And you've got guys and women in the Republican Senate going, oh, my Lord, look at that. Trump left fuming after at least 14 of his candidates were going to lose. Of course they lost the midterms. Donald Trump endorsed them. And here he's done it again in the biggest prize, the state of Texas, where you have Tallarico, who actually knows how to win elections.
So, Joe, you're telling me that President Donald Trump is acting in his own self-interest rather than for the good of the party? That would be the first time that's ever happened. But that is what's happening here. This is a personal vendetta from Trump. He is targeting his foes in the Republican Party, those who opposed him in Indiana. Obviously Thomas Massie, Bill Cassidy, who voted for his impeachment, and now we have, of course, John Cornyn, who he deemed a lukewarm supporter in Texas. He is taking out his foes, but hurting his party's chances while he does it. This is motivated by vengeance. This is the retribution tour. We've seen the Department of Justice do their part, going after his political foes, whether it's James Comey, Letitia James, and the like. Here he's doing it within the Republican Party. And sure, he's effective at that, but you make a great point. The theme here is he's hurting his party's chances. We just showed a tweet a moment ago listing the number of ways that Senator Cassidy has defied Trump in the last few days since his primary loss. That's significant, including with the War Powers resolution. Perhaps, if Cornyn were to lose in Texas, he would do the same. But at minimum, here's the tweet here. Look, he said he's going to vote against Cassidy, vote against the Ballroom Project. He has said he called Paxton a felon, and then most significantly yesterday, the War Powers vote. Also Texas now in play. Now it's long been the white whale for Democrats. Maybe Paxton still figures a way to win this, but right now he would be, that's a toss-up, and he's at a significant fundraising disadvantage for Tallarico, who has shown remarkable political skill. Joe, I mean, this is a theme here, is that Trump is doing what he wants to do, whether that's building the ballroom, whether that's having this January 6th slush fund, whether it's have the IRS never be able to investigate him, his family, or any business. That's all for him. And these moves here are for him, not the party.
Yeah, the Cop Killer Slush Fund. Yeah, that ought to go over pretty well with focus groups in Gary, Indiana, and Peoria, and you just go down the list. Suburbs of Philadelphia. That should be fascinating. So, David Drucker, it seems to me I wish I had a spin wheel. We could decide. You could either talk about Paxton, talk about a Texas race, whether that's fool's gold for Republicans again. You could talk about the Harlem Globetrotters. You could talk about what happened in Kentucky last night. But I am curious. What's your read on the Republicans right now, being behind historically in these generic ballot tests, and them getting the news that it's likely they're going to have to throw millions and millions of dollars into a Texas race with Ken Paxton that they wouldn't if John Cornyn won?
Yeah, well, the problem with being in a vice, Joe, is even when you know you're in a vice, you're in a vice. It means you have a hard time getting out of it. And who knows? Look, maybe this slush fund will end up compensating Jim Comey and Letitia James, and then they can say, listen, we were serious about this anti-weaponization thing. But otherwise, and maybe they'll refer to the ballroom as a jobs-creating program. There's a lot of construction there. Absent all of that, these are, as you have mentioned, really big problems for Republicans, and they know this. All right, they are saying this in very subtle, careful ways, which actually is a big deal when you look at how Congress has been functioning in this second Trump presidency. But as I reported for the Dispatch in a story that posted earlier this week, Trump's power in Republican primaries is such that when the first order of business to keep your job is winning renomination, you don't feel, and it's kind of true, that there's not much you can do. And for instance, I talked to one Republican strategist who told me that when they test issues for candidates in Republican primaries to see what's going to move them ahead, various standard conservative issues will move you up by 20 points. The Trump endorsement, if you test it, if this candidate had the Trump endorsement, this candidate has the Trump endorsement, that moves you up by 50 points. There is no single better way to win a Republican nomination or to avoid defeat than to say that the president is on your side. And so that's where these guys find themselves. I will say one thing about Texas, because I can't help myself, and as I said last week, I'm just going to be wrong one day. I've been covering Texas for 2 decades. It's the big red whale, and it's really hard for Democrats to flip. Do not expect, if they're being honest and if they're going to stick to this, don't expect party and party-affiliated organizations to spend a dime there. What they're telling me is that plenty of money, all of his groups, you've got about $350 to $400 million, depending on how you count it. And since he has the money, and since, as one Republican insider told me, you broke it, you bought it, they're going to say, this is your project. We have more important, more pressing needs in North Carolina and Maine and everywhere else. But it is going to be tough for Tallarico, even with Paxton, who I like to say is carrying around a 10-piece luggage set of scandal, just because of the lean there. But it is now in play. I wouldn't say Tallarico's favored, but this thing is in play and it cannot be ignored.
Yeah, I mean, Ken Paxton, my God, he makes Edwin Edwards look like Billy Graham. With all due respect to both Edwin Edwards and Billy Graham there. I mean, he's carrying some heavy baggage. You bring up a really interesting point about funding too, and it's something that if you just scan who contributed last night to races, there are these outside groups, and right now you've got these tech bros who have gone decidedly far right, MAGA right, on woke issues. And right now you have Andreessen Horowitz being the largest contributors in American politics, and they're piling all their money toward MAGA candidates right now. Expect that money to be flying all over the place. Same thing in an Alabama primary last night for Senate. 3 unknowns. Who came out ahead? The guy that had crypto bros dumping millions and millions of dollars in an Alabama race that nobody knows anything about. Today, later on, we're going to have Riley Griffin with Bloomberg reporting on the largest data center ever made that's going to have enough power in an unknown part of Louisiana, this quiet little part of Louisiana, that will generate enough power to fuel Manhattan. Like, this is the new political infrastructure where AI, tech bros, tech monopolists, crypto kings, they're coming in and they're buying elections. And they did it last night quietly. And you're right about Texas. The only thing I will say about Texas is you look at the history of Texas. I think Barack Obama lost it by 13. Hillary lost it by 9. Biden lost it by 5. Things were breaking pretty well that way. I think somebody got within 2 or 3 points of Ted Cruz.
That was Beto
a few
O'Rourke
years
in
back.
2018.
Beto got within a few points. I've been calling, like you, and like I called Pennsylvania's fool's gold until 2016. I've been calling Texas fool's gold. Well, looks like the Republicans may just pick a fool that may turn over the gold to Democrats. We shall see. Mika.
Well, as if we could just put up the Ken Paxton graphic for a moment as I go to Ed Luce. But President Trump, of course, presidents always have a purpose behind their endorsements. And as we look at the list of concerns one might have about this candidate, President Trump made this announcement saying Paxton is a true MAGA warrior. Read this and think about that. Yep, highlighting the Texas AG's support for ending the filibuster and the so-called Save America Act. And by the way, he also posted as to why he didn't endorse Cornyn. He was not supportive of me when times were tough. Okay. So amid all this, Ed Luce, you're writing about America's ailing one-trick pony. Tell us about it.
Well, this is the ongoing situation in Iran. I mean, having talked about all the disturbing things happening at home, thank God we've got a well-fought war to turn to. But sarcasm apart, the continued emphasis by this Department of Defense, or Department of War, as Hegseth calls it, by this White House, on America's ability to blow people to smithereens, and the continued failure to realize that this doesn't intimidate Iran, it doesn't produce concessions by Iran, I think just underlines the fact that America has for too long believed that military superiority is a substitute for diplomacy. We had a deal here with the JCPOA in 2015 that took 20 months to negotiate. The people doing the negotiations were experts. There were a lot of very seasoned negotiators, State Department with their nuclear advisors. It took them 20 months to do that. That Trump thinks threatening Iran with more Stone Age scenarios is going to get it to change to the degree that within a 2 or 3 day period, Witkoff and Kushner can negotiate a better deal than Obama did in 20 months without, by the way, ever threatening to bomb Iran into the Stone Age. Just, I think, underlines the point here that the one-trick pony is having what Hegseth calls lethality, precision, ability to blow stuff up, is no substitute for thinking. But I think, and you know, I don't want to sort of make myself unpopular in Washington, Trump is part of a continuing tradition here. We saw this with the Iraq War. We saw this with the kill ratios that McNamara talked about in the Vietnam War. There is a tendency to confuse military power for strategy. And I think Operation Epic Fury, therefore, is in a long line of situations where America wins battle after battle after battle and loses the war.
Ed Luce will always be popular in Washington. Let's start with that. Elizabeth B. Miller, let's try to connect all of this and like sort of this one theme here. No doubt, President Trump still very strong in the Republican Party, still able to flex and use the levers of government to benefit himself and his priorities here at home. But even though that is strength.
Elizabeth, we always love having you on, writer at large for the New York Times, Elizabeth B. Miller, a legend, and I hope you do appreciate the fact that I let it out, I vented a little bit, so you could remain mindful and a bit stoic this morning. We always love having you.
Thank you, Joe.
Well,
so generous.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
It's what I try to do. Wise mind instead of emotion mind. Elizabeth, thank you so much. I hope you come back very soon. Mika, what do we have coming up?
So very wise. Still